Welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast with Don and Suzanne Manning. Parents, what if we could give you the power to transform your family into something absolutely amazing?
A family where everyone is healthy, gets along, loves Jesus, and has great purpose in life.
Hey, let us flip your thinking to unlock the power God has given you to create your own Crazy Cool family. Hello, parents. Welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast. Don and Suzanne Manning here, and hopefully I'm using a good tone of voice as I talk to you
If
right
not,
now.
you'll make me cry.
I know, because that's what we're going to talk about today. Tone. Your tone of voice. How often have you ever had your wife, guys, have you ever had your wife say to you, I don't like that tone you're using with me? Has that ever happened to you?
Has it happened to you, Don?
Oh, wow. Yes.
Once
it's
or twice?
Yes, it has happened to me.
In 30 years?
And what's wild is a lot of times when it's happened to me, not that it's happened so often, maybe it has, yes it has.
Daily?
Okay,
No.
is that I don't even know that I'm using a bad tone.
You're not aware of them.
And so I will say things to Suzanne like, honey, I'm just being passionate. I'm just excited about it. No, you're angry. You have an angry
You're
tone.
frustrated.
Yes.
That's what I would say. You're frustrated,
Yes.
which is another word for angry.
And maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but either way, it shuts down the conversation. The tone that I'm using because of the tone, in this case, it's not getting through to my wife.
Right.
What I'm trying to communicate something with my words, but the tone is not communicating.
It's usurping your words.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so we even, you guys all know this, but we're going to bring it up because it's important that there's three elements of a conversation. One of them is the tone, and one of them is the words, and one of them is the body language. Well, all we focus on usually is the words, but everybody says, that your tone and your body language are huge. In fact, they're more important than the actual words you say. And so we're not going to talk about body language today. Maybe that's a podcast for another day. But today we're going to focus on how the impact of your tone of voice.
Yeah, so there's so many times when we talk to you guys and share with you guys, we talk about this as a next level concept. But today, we don't feel like it's a next level concept. We feel like that this is actually a fine-tuned concept. This is, the scriptures say to pay attention to your words. Your words are like honey, they're like the sharp tongue that divide. There's just thousands of scriptures, all in the Proverbs, that talk about the tongue, but we're actually going a little bit finer than your tongue, and we're actually talking about the tone of the words that you're using.
Yeah. So it's not just, and let's think about what, there's all kinds of scriptures. Ephesians 4:32 says, be kind and compassionate to one another. Proverbs 15:1 says, a soft answer turns away wrath. And we think that tone has to be soft. We think that tone has to be and maybe it's the volume of our voice, but really a lot of it has to do with the inflection of our voice. And this really hit me when I was a new dad, the first, let's say 5 to 7, 8 years, because I had, and maybe even longer, because we have, our first 4 kids are girls. So it was me and 5 girls in our house. And it seemed like my tone was always getting me into trouble. It was always shutting down my girls, and I didn't get it because I just couldn't quite figure out how to get my tone right and to have a calm voice. It would feel like that even the least little thing I would say, and Suzanne, you might just want to comment into this, is that what was it that, I didn't feel like I was being overly harsh or anything else, but what was being received by our daughters?
Yeah, and so I do want to answer that along with just invite dads in that are listening to this as well. Understand that you have a deep tone of voice. And so, especially for a little girl, but even for a little boy who's been around his mom all day, who talks in a higher pitch or a higher tone, when dad comes in, you don't ever have to raise your voice, because your voice, your deep tone carries authority, and it carries a demand of obedience with it. And I think that sometimes when our kids were little, I don't know that you understood how valuable your nice, calm, normal voice was and how that was going to do it. You never had to elevate it. You know, sometimes as moms, we feel like we have to elevate it 3 or 4 notches to where we're almost screaming to get our kids to obey. But dads don't have to do that. They can very calmly say, I need you to go get your shoes on.
So you're saying moms should yell at their kids, but dads should not? Is that...
Well, that's good. I'm glad you said that. I am saying that what the dad says goes a lot further than what the mom says. And so the dads, you don't ever yell at your kids. You don't get to, because you will damage your kids at a whole higher level than moms do when they yell at their kids.
Yeah. And you know, when I was in that mode, I got really actually angry at that, because it did.
Yeah, you felt like you had a higher standard.
It didn't seem fair.
Yeah.
It's like I felt like I was in a vice, if you will. In a box. I couldn't move.
You couldn't be male. You couldn't have your deep voice.
Well,
you had to talk like this.
Not quite.
Like Donald Duck.
I just felt like I couldn't. I didn't know how to do it right, and it felt like the standard was too high. And, but, you know, and I did have anger issues, and I mean, I still do, but I mean, not as much, hopefully, but I mean, it's part of it was just being angry, but, it took me a while, and God showed me, he said, look, I'm really concerned about your anger. I really want you to be a kind and compassionate man. I want you to be someone who can, disciple people, and to do that. And I'm going to take you through having 5 girls in your house, because it's that important to me. Mm-hmm. And when I realized it that way, it was like, oh, you know, God cares enough about my character, about my, and he cares enough about my kids that he really wants to impress this upon me. And it worked, you know. I mean, today, my kids will say that I'm an encouraging person,
right?
That I'm not a harsh, critical person, which, the first 5 to 10 years of my parenting, they would have said that. You know, they may not, but they were 4. They couldn't say it at that time. But if you project them to where they were today, because God used that to, and so what I want to say, dads in particular, allow the Holy Spirit to let you see what your tone does. Watch the countenance of your kids when you have a harsh tone with them, and watch them maybe even not want to be around you because of your harsh tone. And it's not just dads. I mean, moms have the same issues.
Right. Yeah. So I believe the tone of our voice has a lot to do with the quality of our relationships. And you saw that breakdown with the little girls. They didn't want to be around you. They didn't feel safe with you. And so mamas, the same thing happens with us, with our little girls as well, but for sure with our sons. I mean, there's so many times. I mean, even today, if I am frustrated or annoyed, or I'm being impatient with something, and I'll say, you know, Max will come downstairs and he'll be like, what's for lunch? And I'm like, I don't care, whatever you fix. I mean, whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Do you want me to fix you something? I'll make you something. I mean, and I'll say it just like that. And he's like, Mom, what's wrong? Like, are you mad? Are you frustrated? Are you annoyed? And if you listen to every single one of my words, those words were great words, but my tone dictated it all. If I would have said, I don't know, babe, what do you want for lunch? What sounds good? Want me to fix you something? Other than the word babe, those were the exact same sentences. It's just the tone of voice.
It's kind of hard to use the word babe with a harsh tone.
It's true. When you're thinking nice, then you're thinking babe, honey,
hey,
sugar, lumpy. And so mamas, I just want to, oh my goodness, like I said, this is fine tuning how you're relating to the people in your life, how you're relating to your spouse, and how you're relating to your kids is all about that tone. And
because let me tell you, moms and dads, tone is a game changer. I mean, it's an absolute game changer. When you can change the tone you're talking to your kids with, you open them up And I guess the corollary to that is you don't shut them down. And what I mean by shut them down is that when you elevate your tone, when it becomes harsh, all your kid wants to do is get away from it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we all do. I do too. You do too, right? If somebody's freaking out, we were at a restaurant the other day and this guy went off on the manager, about wearing masks. And I just wanted to leave. And we hadn't had our food yet, but I couldn't wait to get out of there. I didn't know the man, but his tone of voice stressed me out.
And think about it, guys, moms and dads, if you're at work and your boss all of a sudden starts to get all mad and yell at you, I mean, what do you want to do? Get me back to my office. What do I have to do? All you think about is, what do I have to do to get out of here?
Yep.
Well, multiply that by 10. And
because it's a little kid and you're an adult,
right,
and they want your approval and they want your acceptance.
I mean, think about this, moms and dads. You ever see how a kid, let's say a 3-year-old, how they draw, if they can draw, how they draw people.
Yeah.
And what happens is they draw them with really long legs and really short torsos.
Or no torso at all. A lot of the times you'll see a circle, which is the head, and then 2 lines coming out of it, which is the legs.
Because that's how they see them.
That's their perspective. Yeah. Exactly.
And so when you can think about your 4-year-old little girl or boy, how they see you as this big monster, really, that comes at them, and then you're coming at them with a harsh tone. I mean, it is terrifying to them.
Yeah.
And even it also applies to your teenager. I mean, and
for sure. Actually, your teenager, that's really what they're listening to. They're listening to your tone more so than they are to your words, because they don't know that they trust your words, and they don't know if they believe your words, because a lot of the times we have got it down to a science where we can say the right thing, but how we feel, we can't hide that in our tone. And so our teenagers, like we've said earlier, they are super sensitive to hypocrites. And so where they get that, where they pick up on if you're being a hypocrite or not, is in your tone of voice. And so just like with Maddox, that whole example that I did about fixing lunch or not, I mean, I wasn't saying it with kindness. I didn't want to fix him lunch. He knew I didn't want to fix him lunch because of my tone of voice, but my words said, "What do you want? I'll fix you something for lunch."
Well, and what happens is they blame themselves for our negative tone, for whatever. Well, I've done something wrong. Well, I'm not enough. I'm not. And our tone sends versus, I mean, let's flip it. When you have an encouraging tone, it lifts their spirits. And if you come in and even if it's okay, you say, well, how can I be encouraging when I need to get onto him or whatever? You can be, we say this a lot, you can be firm without being angry. And you can have so one of the things that I work on a lot is if I'm angry, if I'm frustrated with something or whatever, is my first thing I think about now is what's going to be my tone. And I still mess it up. I mean, but what happens is when you start to do it well, then they're more forgiving of your tone. When it's not consistent of you, like, there was a couple of months ago that I yelled at one of my boys. And I mean that I really got mad.
And it was uncharacteristic. Like, it shocked all of us because that's not who you are. And we're like, wait a minute, what is that? Where's that coming from? What in the world?
But what happened was it really shut him down. And I hadn't seen it in a long time because I haven't yelled like that in maybe years or at least months. And so
maybe that kid's never seen it.
Exactly. But it was because I know. So dads and moms, know that for sure, that when you're yelling, when you are out of control, man, that's going to really, Suzanne was saying that tone has a lot to do with the quality of your relationships. If you want to push your kid away, be a yeller. Right. Be somebody who's going to be, and some people say, well, that's not our culture. We yell and stuff, and we get that, and there are differences in those things. But I'm talking about when you yell in anger. You can be a guy who's hugs all the time or is excited about life or, is loud. That's different than being harsh and angry. Does that make sense? I hope that's making sense to your parents, that it's not about stopping your personality. It's about how your tone is communicating disapproval and frustration and all those things.
Exactly. And so a lot of the times we'll attach those negative emotions to passion. But passion can be enthusiastic, it can be excited, it can be happy, it can be joyful. That's, that's what we're going after. So if you are a passionate person, then by all means be passionate. But if you are an angry, passionate person, then you need to know that you are doing damage. There's damage that's happening along the way. You're taking people out right and left with your negative tone.
And so what would you say to them, Suzanne, about what to do about changing our tone and to we've said be aware of it.
Well, I just think that that's key. Awareness is key. I mean, just think of the word, okay, just be aware. So how are you aware? You pay attention to your tone of voice. You're mindful of it. What's going on? What's going on with me? What causes you to use a good or a bad tone? And then once again, awareness, how do you change that tone? How do we change the tone that we use? And so awareness is key. Just stop and pay attention to it.
Well, and for me, it was awareness of the damage I was doing.
Yeah.
I could see that it wasn't just awareness of, I'm having a bad tone here. But, when I saw what I was doing, particularly early in my marriage to my daughters, basically God said, hey, dude, you want to keep hurting your daughters and you want to push them away? And I'm like, no, God, that's not what I want to do. He says, okay, well, let's listen to me. Even with Suzanne in our marriage, our wedding verse was Ephesians 4:32, which says, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ forgave you. I didn't get that quite.
Yeah.
Quote, just as in Christ, there's something, I'm missing a phrase there, but anyway, but what it means is that we are always, I tell my kids a lot, I never, as a dad especially, going back to tone and all the things I've learned, I never get the right to be angry and yell at you. I don't care what you do, kids. It doesn't mean I can't be firm. It doesn't mean I can't be in control. It doesn't mean I can't be even demanding at times as a dad and have authority, but I don't ever get to do it with anger. And if I do, it's my job to go apologize to them immediately, because I know the damage that my tone can do. And there's many times that, Suzanne and I are both really working on that in our marriage right now.
Right.
Because we've seen, as we're working through some things, that we actually have better tones with our kids than we do with ourselves. And so we are working on that to make sure that we are addressing that. And man, it's hard sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I just want to say that just some practicals for you guys to take away, a couple things for you to do to invest in your relationship when it comes to your tone. And Don's mentioned both of them. The first one is to stop before you speak. The Ephesians 4, 32?
Ephesians 4:32.
Yeah. Go up a few verses to 4:29, and it says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And so that's one of the things is stop before you say anything and say to yourself, is this going to be helpful? Am I going to build them up? We're not right now. Remember, we're fine-tuning not our words, we're fine-tuning our tone. So think about your tone. So you're going to have to go back up to the awareness and think, am I frustrated? Am I mad? Am I annoyed? Am I annoyed that they haven't cleaned up their room yet? And is it going to come out of my tone of voice? Because parents, we can't hide our tone of voice. We can flatter our words. We can change our words. We can say what we want to say, but we can't hide our words. And then I just want to say that the second thing about being practical to do these two things. One, stop before you speak, because we want the unwholesome talk to not come out. And the other one Don mentioned too as well is apologize. If you are frustrated that they haven't cleaned their room and the tone of voice that comes out is a frustrated tone, then label it and say what it is. Treat our kids with honor and respect and say, you know what, I'm sorry, that was a rude tone of voice, or that was a harsh tone, or that was a frustrated tone of voice because I asked you to clean your room up and you haven't done it yet, and that made me frustrated. And I'm sorry that I used that tone, and I'm sorry that I'm frustrated with you. Now, can I help you clean your room? I mean, can I? Because remember, parents, we want to connect with our kids. With everything we say, with everything we do, and now with our tone of voice, we
Right.
want to connect with our kids.
Well, and as a practical thing, just memorize Ephesians 4:29 because it's a great verse to recall when you are in that moment. And in this case, we're talking about do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. And so we associate the word talk with words.
Right.
But what we want to do today is get you to expand that and associate the word talk also with your tone, because that is going to be key. And another thing that happens, and I hope this will, I'm trying to, as we close, to try to inspire you and encourage you to really embrace your tone in a good way, because like you said, I know that can be frustrating. I've really walked through that and that frustration of it. But what happens is when you start to downgrade your tone and you start to be calmer and with the firmness that you're doing and things like that, you actually get listened to more. Mm-hmm. You will, if you want to be listened to by your kids, use calmer tones, more encouraging tones, more inspiring tones. You know what? If I need to get their attention and if I have to raise my voice, they're going to listen to me because it doesn't happen very much.
Yeah.
But if you do it all the time,
It's clout. It's credibility. Yeah. So daddies, you don't have to yell, because the voice that you've been given as a deep male is going to get them to follow you. If you've trained them to only obey by yelling, then you're going to have to back it off a little bit.
But also as another incentive, kind of where that's the positive side of things, realize, parents, your negative tones and your harshness and your yelling is doing damage to your relationship. And so often we think, oh, I want to have this great relationship with my child. But in reality, we are doing the very things that is pushing them away.
Yeah.
And, and how many kids do you know? Maybe you were like this when you were a kid, is that, man, you avoided your parents because you thought they were going to yell at you. Don't be that parent. Change the legacy. Mm-hmm. And changing the legacy means changing your tone.
Yeah. And just know that there's so many times that our kids actually do not listen to us, but they don't hear our words. They forget what we've said, but they remember how we made them feel. They remember if they were encouraged, if they were lifted up, if they felt honored and valued. They remember that. They might not remember, oh, I love you. I think you're amazing. I think you're incredible. They might not remember when we've said, oh my gosh, I'm so mad at you. I can't believe you did that. They're not going to remember the mad at you did that, whatever it is that is. They're just going to remember that mommy and daddy don't like me.
Right.
Because that's how they feel. That's their feel. And so that's what we want to just encourage you with, is you use your tone of voice to connect in your relationships at the next level, the fine-tooth level, whatever level we're talking about here.
Yeah.
That tone of voice makes people feel good or bad.
Yeah. And the more you can get your tone in line, the better you're going to connect with your kids.
Yes.
This is important, parents. This is one of those that you may not like it, you may not like what we're saying in some ways, but listen to it and work on it, because it's one of those things that can be a game changer in your family and a game changer in your parenting.
Yeah, and if you don't believe us, then do this experiment, okay? Talk to your dog, okay? And say to your dog, I hate you. I can't stand you. I wish you didn't live in our family anymore. You're the worst dog ever. And watch that dog wag its tail and be so happy and all that stuff. And then go negative, go deep and dark and rude and mean and with your tone of voice, but say wonderful, sweet things. Don, you do the negative side. You be
the dog?
Yeah.
Well, then you would say, I love you. I love you.
You're the best dog ever.
Exactly.
I'm going to give you as many treats as you want, and you watch the dog cower because the dog understands tone. How much more, if the dog understands tone, do we understand tone?
Yeah.
Do we fine-tune
Fine-tune.
human beings
Yeah.
decipher tone and use meaning. We attach so much meaning to it. So,
And we all
okay.
do. And so it's important with your kids. It's important with your spouse. Tone is so important. We hope you work on that and you will interject that into your family. And really one of the things, just you start to have an encouraging tone. You start to have watch your kids react. Watch your kids who is this dad I've got? Who is this mom? Because tone means a lot in your relationships. Hey, parents, thanks for listening. Go be crazy parents, crazycoolfamily.com.